Old school NBA fans, what's going on? Self-research NBA facts. Got another video for you. This one I wanted to do about hear chatter about this stuff. I've heard it for years actually, but for some reason people think that if a team has more Hall of Famers on it, that they're automatically the better team or a great team or whatever. Which it's just the stupidest thing you could ever say. It's a Nick Wright talking point. It's what it is. Because technically LeBron James played more people that were in the Hall of Fame than Michael Jordan did. So I got him. More Hall of Famers. So the age of these players doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Manu Ginobili is 35, 36, Duncan's 36, 37. Doesn't matter if Jason Kidd's 37, averaging 7.7 points a game. That does not matter. He's in the Hall of Fame, so he's a Hall of Famer. Right there, you got to count him. Okay, here we go. Somebody tried to tell me the other day that LeBron James, he played like 16 Hall of Famers. And Michael Jordan only played 7. Like, 7? First of all, you're only counting Malone and Stockton once. He actually played them twice. So you kind of reveal your own ignorance right there. So just going backwards, yeah, Stockton and Malone, that's 4. Gary Payton, that's 5. Charles Barkley, 6. Clyde Drexler, 7. Now here's where it gets interesting. You got Magic and Worthy as 9, but Vlade Divac is also in the Hall of Fame. So it's actually 10. We're going to count Ginobili for all his international stuff, because there's no way a 2-time All-Star who never averaged 20 points ever in his game, never 5 rebounds, never 5 assists, there's no way that guy's an NBA Hall of Famer. I don't care. And I know they've been letting in guys they shouldn't recently, but there's no way Manu Ginobili is an NBA Hall of Famer. And I don't think Vlade Divac is either. But if we're going to count this guy, now we got to count that guy. But more to the point is, how about top 75 players? In LeBron James's 10 NBA Finals, I did a video on this already. It sounds redundant, but he played against 15 top 75 players. 2-7, 2-7, 2-11, 3-12, 2-13, 2-14, 1-15, 1-16, 2-17, 2-18, and 0-20. Comes to 15. Michael Jordan played against 9 top 75 players in his 6 finals. So 9 divided by 6, 1.5. 15 divided by 10, 1.5. So they played the exact number of top 75 players. Not that that really matters, but the ages of these guys, Tim Duncan, Jason Kidd, they're older. Kawhi Leonard was 21, 22, was not in his prime. I think Westbrook and Durant were 23, maybe okay in the beginning of their prime. Harden was 22, coming off the bench. Guy didn't even start, but we have to count him because he's top 75. Okay, whatever. It's the dumbest narrative I've ever heard. So, in other words, any time in NBA history, the team that the team that had the more Hall of Famers was always at the advantage. So, in 1982, Seattle was the 3 seed. They had only 1 Hall of Famer as the 3 seed. Houston was the 6 seed, and they had 2 Hall of Famers, but Houston won. So, Seattle won. They're the 3 seed. Seattle beat Houston, the 3 over the 6. That's no upset. But we're supposed to call it because they had more Hall of Famers. This stuff can get ridiculous real fast. I can go on and on about it. So yeah, I can give you a plethora of examples where a team that had less Hall of Famers was the better team, had a higher seed, whatever the case may be. Doesn't make it an upset. I mean, counting Hall of Famers is the dumbest thing in the world. But it's a talking point when you're trying to bring down Michael Jordan. Like I've said in other videos, Michael Jordan is in LeBron James and his fans' way. You can't move the resume because it's almost impeccable. So you have to chip away at it. oh, well, Jordan won in the 90s. Why didn't he win in the 80s? Never mind that the guy was on a 40-win team, a 30-win team, and a 38-win team until 88. Then he won 50, and he basically did that himself. And there was no teammate averaging over, I think, 11 points a game on that team. What are we talking about here? In 89, he still didn't even have a teammate averaging 15 points a game that was on an all-star. He didn't play with an all-star until 1990. He finally got one reserve all-star in Scottie Pippen. He wasn't on an all-NBA, wasn't on an all-defense. He was a reserve 16-point-a-game all-star. So we can't top MJ's resume, so we have to diminish it. We have to chip away at it. It's all we can do. We just got to chip. But 1981, the Milwaukee Bucks won 60 games. How they win 60 games? They had one Hall of Famer, Sidney Moncrief. How they do it? It's a miracle. Well, also in 1981, it was miracle year. The LA Lakers had 3 Hall of Famers: Jamal Wilkes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar coming off of an MVP, Magic Johnson coming off of a Finals MVP from 1980 in his rookie year. Yeah, he was injured, but he played all the playoff games. Now, he was there. 3 Hall of Famers. They lost to a team that had a guy who's technically in the Hall of Fame, Calvin Murphy, is a one-time All-Star. I have no idea how that guy got in. And Moses Malone. So they got 2 Hall of Famers going up against 3. And the Lakers have home court advantage. How on earth did Houston beat them with only 2 Hall of Famers? Again, it's a miracle. How did that happen? In 86, Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon, which Sampson is not an NBA Hall of Famer. He's a all-around college and NBA Hall of Famer. They only had the 2 of them, but they beat the 86 Lakers, who had Worthy, Kareem, and Magic. How on earth did that happen in 1986? Another miracle, I guess. In 1989, the Cleveland Cavaliers were the number 1 rated team. Net rating, number 1. Look it up, 89. No Hall of Famers on their team. How did that happen? It's a miracle. How about the Portland Trailblazers in 1991 with only 1 Hall of Famer having the best record in the NBA? 63-19. How on earth did that happen? The Bulls super team only won 61. They outdid them. It's a miracle. In 1993, the best records in the NBA: Phoenix, 1 Hall of Famer; New York Knicks, 1 Hall of Famer. There was other teams with multiple Hall of Famers on them. Golden State Warriors, they had Chris Mullin and Tim Hardaway. They were nowhere to be found in the playoffs. Boston had 2 Hall of Famers. They were 48-34. They had Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. Never mind, they were old and just about done. Doesn't matter. How about in 1992, the Detroit Pistons have 3 Hall of Famers who all were in the All-Star game. Every one of them. Rodman, Dumars, and Isaiah. They were 30, 28, and 30 years old. 3 Hall of Famers lost to the New York Knicks, who just had 1 in 92 in the first round. How did that happen? A miracle. The 96 Seattle Supersonics only had Gary Payton as the only Hall of Famer. They swept the 2-time defending champion, who had 2 Hall of Famers and top 75 players, Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon. Then they beat the team that won the next 2, got to the finals the next 2 years, in Utah Jazz, who had 2 Hall of Famers. They did all that with just 1. Wow, what an upset. Never mind that Seattle was the number 1 seed, 64-18, but they didn't have enough Hall of Famers compared to these other teams. It's a miracle. 2019 Toronto only had Kawhi Leonard, unless somehow Marc Gasol or Kyle Lowry getting in. If they do, that's a joke. But anyways, it stands now they're not. And everybody assumes Draymond Green, Klay Thompson are going to get in. So even without Durant, they had 3 Hall of Famers. How did they lose in 6? This is a team with all kinds of championship experience. How did they lose to Toronto in 2019 with one Hall of Famer? That is just crazy. 2015 Atlanta Hawks won 60 games, no Hall of Famers. 2011 Bulls 61 and 21, no Hall of Famers. How on earth did that happen? How about in the 77 finals where the Portland Trail Blazers, to get there, they swept the number one seeded Lakers, who had the best player in the NBA, in Kareem. Portland only had Bill Walton, the only Hall of Famer on the team. Then they turn around and beat Philly, who had George McGinnis and Dr. J, probably the second best player in the NBA. It beat them in 6 in the finals. A miracle. I mean, believe me, it is an absolute joke to count Hall of Famers or top 75 players. Stuff doesn't matter. A good team is a good team. It isn't all predicated on Hall of Famers. You know, Bulls won first three-peat with just 2 Hall of Famers. There was plenty of teams in the NBA that had 2 Hall of Famers during that stretch. Boston had 3, Golden State had 2, Utah had 2. There was other teams too. There was plenty of them that had 2 or more. But it's just a ridiculous narrative. Detroit had 3. I mean, it's a ridiculous narrative that's out there. It's just, again, to push Michael Jordan down, trying to prop up LeBron James. But LeBron James didn't beat these teams. He lost to them. And you could say that, oh, well, Jordan would have lost to them too. You're living in fantasy land again. You can't prove it. You don't know that. So until you can prove it, why even say it? You know, I'm not dealing in fantasy land here in things that may or may not have happened, coulda, shoulda, don't know. You can't prove it, so why even talk about it? Would the 96 Bulls have beat the 17 Warriors? I don't know. Depends on what rules, what era. Depends on, you know, the matchup, you know, who exploits the matchups the best. There's a lot of factors that goes into it. You're just going to look at it and say, well, the Warriors have 4 Hall of Famers, so they're better, right? The Bulls only had 3. I guess Kukoc is technically one. But, you know, the Bulls have 3 top 75, and the Warriors only have 2, so I guess the Bulls are better. I mean, it's just the dumbest thing. You cannot count Hall of Famers and top 75 players. It just does not make a good team. It's just a dumb narrative, and hopefully it ends soon. That's it for this video. It was a real rambling one. I didn't really mean to even make it, but that's it. I'll have a better one and a real one later on. So anyway, that's it for now.